السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We continue inshallah ta'ala with the book of Usul As-Sunnah by Imam Ahmad rahimahullah. And the last thing that we talked about was the hadith of As-Sadiq and Masduq, the hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu, about basically the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the belief in the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as an example of what he mentioned right before it when he said وَمَنْ لَمْ يَعْرِفْ تَفْسِيرَ الْحَدِيثِ وَيَبْلُغْهُ عَقْلَهُ فَقَدْ كُفِيَ ذَلك وَأُحْكِمَ لَهُ فَعَلَيْهِ الْإِيمَانُ بِهِ وَالتَّسْلِيمُ لَهُ. Whoever doesn't know the essence or the how the hadith is, not the tafsir of the or the explanation of it, but the essence of it, like how these matters of the unseen are, and one's reason or to comprehend it is not reached, he had been sufficed for it, and the matter has been made very clear. And as mentioned, this is a matter of unseen, and for the unseen we submit ourselves to believe in it the way it's mentioned, because there's no way beyond what's mentioned in the revelation from Allah that a believer would know how things are unless it's mentioned in the wahy. So to believe in it and to submit oneself to it, one of which is the hadith of As-Sadiq al-Masduq, and the like of it what was mentioned in the Qadr. This is where we stopped at. Then he says وَمِثْلُ أَحَادِيثِ الرُّؤْيَةِ كُلِّهَا, and the like of the hadith of al-ru'ya, a hadith of all of the hadith of al-ru'ya. Al-ru'ya comes from ra'a, when you see something. The hadith that talks about seeing, that refers to the believers seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the day of judgment. So when they say hadith al-ru'ya, the hadith that talks about the believers seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the day of judgment. And why this is mentioned? Because those who allowed themselves from the deviant sects, those who allowed themselves to speak or to believe in the matters of the unseen based on their own desires. So they would twist the meanings of some of the hadith to make it related to the physical life that they live in. They don't want to go beyond that when it comes to the matter of the unseen, and to submit themselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best how these things will be. So they denied that the believers will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the day of judgment, and they would take verses to oppose these types of hadith, and even clear verses in the Quran that talks about the believers seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَجُوهٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ نَاظِرَةٌ إِلَى رَبِّهَا نَاظِرَةٌ. Faces on the day of judgment, ناظرة, very pleasant, very bright, إِلَى رَبِّهَا نَاظِرَةٌ, towards its Lord, looking. And many hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. So the people of As-Sunnah, they believe in it, and they believe that the believers will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with their own eyes, no doubt about this. But there's difference between al-ru'ya, or seeing, and al-ihata. Al-ihata is to encompass something, is to be basically that's what al-ihata means. Wallahu azza wa jalla bima ta'maluna muhit. He subhanahu wa ta'ala encompasses with his knowledge all of what your actions. So al-ihata is a different thing. وَلَا يُحِيطُونَ بِهِ عِلْمًا. No one will encompass Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with one's eyes, this is a fact. And as we heard in the ayah, and when it comes to the disbelievers, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says كَلَّا إِنَّهُمْ عَنْ رَبِّهِمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ لَمَحْجُوبُونَ. They will be mahjubun from al-hijab. They will be concealed away from seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so when he said that the hadith of al-ru'ya, one of which hadith that came into many different narrations, and this is in Bukhari and Muslim, the hadith of Jarir ibn Abdullah radiyallahu anhu, that he said that قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إنكم ترون ربكم كما ترون هذا القمر لا تضامون في رؤيته. Which means, indeed you will see your Lord, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the same way you see this moon, لا تضامون في رؤيته. That means you don't have any harm seeing it. So the Prophet ﷺ, he showed the Sahaba radiallahu anhum that ru'ya, or seeing the moon, is so easy in this life. Therefore, also it's going to be something so easy in the Day of Judgment for the believers to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the Prophet ﷺ was giving an example of the ru'ya, not giving a similarity to Allah with the moon, wal-'iyadhu billah, as some people might think. No, he's explaining to them very clearly. Do you have any problems looking at the moon when it's full moon and the skies are no clouds or anything? You don't have any problem seeing the moon. So the fact that you're having the ease to see, the same way the believers will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at ease in the Day of Judgment. And the word in the hadith, tudamun, you can either say it like this with a dhamma on the meme, tudamun, or a shadda on the meme, tudamun from a dhamm. The first one is from the dhamm, from the meaning of harm, but tudamun with a shadda from a dhamm is when you bring something next to something else, which means that you don't have to come close to each other to see. Like when you look up, when something is up, you just look at it and you see it. Everybody can see it with ease. But if something is down, like for example, you're looking at something on the ground, you can't have 1,000 people to see it at the same time, right? So you have to be very close to one another to be able to see. So this is la tudammun, that means you don't have to come closer to each other for you to be able to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Day of Judgment. So the hadith is very, very clear. And the hadith in this subject is so many, and mutawatira, and Sahaba radiallahu anhum upon this, and the Imam of this deen. So it's a very clear and a very straightforward subject. So he says, وَمِثْلُ أَحَدِيثِ الرُّؤْيَةِ كُلِّهَا. All of the hadith of the ru'ya, the fact that the believers will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Day of Judgment. He says, وَإِن نَبَتْ عَنِ الْأَسْمَاعِ وَاسْتَوْحَشَ مِنْهَا الْمُجْتَمَعِ. He says this, إِن نَبَتْ عَنِ الْأَسْمَاعِ, that means if someone, when it comes to hearing something like this, becomes not easy to comprehend, right? Or واستوحش منها المستمع, and a person finds it odd, maybe, or something like this. How, because when a person talks about this matter in this dunya has its limitations, and human beings are so limited that they can only explain things with the limits of this worldly life that they live in. Because anything that people would speak about, it's based on what they've seen and what they've heard. So how limited is this life? They would only be able to speak according to what they see and what they hear. But with matters of unseen, it's beyond what's in this dunya in a way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. So the believers, they submit themselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, believing in these matters of unseen the way it is. So he says, وَمِثْلُ أَحَدِيثِ الرُّؤْيَةِ كُلِّهَا وَإِن نَبَتْ عَنِ الْأَسْمَاعِ وَاسْتَوْحَشَ مِنْهَا الْمُسْتَمِعِ. So فَإِنَّمَا عَلَيْهِ الإيمان بها. That means it's upon him to believe in it. وألا يرد منها جزءا واحدا, and not to reject. يرد, when you reject something. Like the hadith of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, من أحدث في أمرنا هذا ما ليس منه فهو رد. Whoever introduced in this matter of ours anything, فهو رد, that means it's rejected against him. So وألا يرد منها, do not reject any of it, a part of it. Why this is, he's saying that, rahimahullah, because it's very precise, because some of the people of innovations, they would take a hadith and they would take part of it, and the other part they say there's no way, because they did not comprehend it with their own limited reason. ولا حرفا واحدا, and do not even reject one letter of it. وغيرها من الأحاديث المأثورات عن الثقات, and the like of these ahadith, there is ma'thurat, that has been, it's proven and it's authentic from those who are trustworthy. So to believe in all of them, all of the hadith of al-ghaib that is mentioned, with the same principles that, as we heard, we believe in it, we know the meaning of it, we don't make similarities to things of this dunya. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows how things are, but the matter is very clear. And the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they did not dispute in this matter. And one important point to understand here, the way of the people of Ahl-Sunnah and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved them in matters of belief and so on, it has its effect on one's ibadah, one's worship, one's akhlaq, and everything. Right? Because once a person has the attitude to reject things in the Quran or in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, rejected, not of course in a direct way, but to allow oneself to interpret things according to their own desires, that open the doors for all kinds of deviations, even in the ahkam, even in the rulings. That's why you see many of these deviants, they would find all kinds of excuses in matters of rulings and halal and haram and so on, because they allowed themselves to interpret things according to their own desires. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. Then he says in the book, وَأَلَّا يُخَاصِمَ أَحَدًا وَلَا يُنَاظِرَ, and that the person of Ahl Sunnah, he does not dispute with anyone. Al-Mukhasama, and Al-Khasm is your opponent in a dispute. As the Prophet ﷺ, he said, one of the characteristics of the hypocrites, وَإِذَا خَاصَمَ فَجَرْ, when he has a dispute, fajr, he becomes so evil and sinful. So the people of Ahl Sunnah, they don't dispute with anyone when it comes to these matters, because they believe in it. It's a matter of unseen. If you put yourself in a dispute, and that's why the next statement, وَلَا يُنَاظِرَ, and he would not debate with anyone, meaning that you're going from a level of believing in the matters of unseen to speak with reason, because that's what al-munazara, or the debate. But if the debate means that the person from Ahl Sunnah, he will say that the ru'ya, for example, the ru'ya or the qadr, this is what we believe in it because of the ayat, because of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. This is a matter of unseen, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best how things are and things like this, and to make it clear to the person. But then the person replies back in a way that is basically is going to be reason limited to things in this life, which is very limited. How the person would respond back? By saying what? By saying things of reason, which is, when we say reason, is not in a praiseworthy context. It's actually the opposite. So he would degrade himself from the wahy, from the revelation of Allah, to something else. And plus, the other opponent might enforce false principles that does not exist. People make their own principles and they build rulings on their false principles. They would say, see, well, who said that your principle to start with is the correct way? So we don't debate with people with matters of belief, matters of unseen, matters of al-ghayb. ولا يتعلم الجدال, and not to learn al-jidal, or to have to be argumentative. And again, this is in the subject of what? In the subject of the qadar, in the subject of these ahadith of the matters of unseen. And not to be understood from this that we don't debate, especially if a person has the knowledge, with explaining and expressing the truth. And the same thing with, for example, calling people to the deen of Islam, and having these proper ways of debate with them, to call people to the deen of Allah. All of that is fine for those who have the ability to do so. But what is mentioned here is to debate with the people of al-ahwa, the people of desires, in a way that it's every day they have a new bid'ah, they have a thing here or there, and it's based on desires. You need to first of all have a common ground, and that is to believe in the wahy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why he says, فَإِنَّ الْكَلَامَ فِي الْقَدَرِ, speaking in the qadr of Allah, of course without knowledge, وَالرُؤْيَا, and seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَالْقُرْآنِ, because we'll talk about how the Quran is the speech of Allah, وَغَيْرِهَا مِنَ السُّنَنِ مَكْرُوهِ, and the rest of the other matters of As-Sunnah. As-Sunnah here refers to matters of belief. This is something that is makruh, something that is disliked, وَمَنْهِيٌ عَنْهُ, and forbidden. لا يكون صاحبه وإن أصاب بكلامه السنة من أهل السنة حتى يدع الجدال ويسلم ويؤمن بالأثر. That the person, when he's upon these types of jidal and arguments and talking with ilm al-kalam and the knowledge of, which is not really knowledge of how to be argumentative and things like this, even if what he says would be according to the sunnah, he's not going to be from the people of Ahl Sunnah till he stays away from arguments, and to submit oneself, and to believe in the athar, and to believe in the text, to believe in the wahy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is an extremely important subject. Right? It's not just about your kalam or your speech is correct. He's saying here that even if what you're saying is correct, but your evidence to establish it is based on reason that has no basis to in matters of wahy from Allah, you're not from among the people of As-Sunnah. Because you follow the ways of the people of desires. So you might be easily falling into the same ways that they're upon if you allow yourself to have false principles based on your limited reason in matters of aqidah, in matters of unseen. Right? And again, this does not undermine the reason that we need to have, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us al-aql, or the reason and things like this, but to use it in the proper way. So, but if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says you will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment, what reason in this? What is the use of reason in that a person has to argue or to debate with someone about this how? The Prophet ﷺ said that we listen and we obey, and that's the believers will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best how that's going to be. And that's it. So this is what is meant here. So even if a person would argue and debate and use all kinds of reason to prove it, he's not then from among the people of Ahl-Sunnah. Even if he wants to reach the right belief in it. Till he leaves all of that and will submit oneself to the athar. And if people do not like that, then that means they're not part of us. I mean, it's they choose to take a different route. And that's why, for example, Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, when someone asked him about certain things, he says, I would be sitting in a majlis, in a gathering, no one knows the sunnah except me, like the aqidah of Ahl-Sunnah and so on. So someone, a mubtadi' or an innovator, would speak. So I would respond back to him or refute what he says. So Imam Ahmad, he said, لا تنصب نفسك لهذا. Do not put yourself in that position. أخبره بالسنة ولا تخاصم. Which means inform him of the sunnah and do not dispute. You see what I'm saying? This is very clear. أخبره بالسنة. He did not say to turn away and to leave, but inform him of the sunnah. This is what the sunnah is. This is the belief is. This is the unseen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that in the Quran. The Prophet ﷺ said that in the authentic ahadith. And this is how the ulama, they explain it in a way that we would understand. And then do not dispute. Do not go into his principles of debate that they invented. So the man repeated, kept on going with this. See, but what do I do? Like, should I leave him like this? Things like this. So then he said to him, Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, he said, ما أراك إلا مخاصما. I don't see you anyone but mukhasiman. You're a person of dispute. You just like to dispute with people. You like to, to be in that situation and so on. So this is the way of the people of Ahl-Sunnah. You inform them of the Sunnah. They don't accept it. What else you can do? What else you're gonna say? So you leave it the way it is, and you advise them to believe and to submit themselves, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to follow the truth. And of course, with having the sincerity in this. So this is with regards of Adam al-Mukhasama, Adam al-Jidal, not to dispute, not to argue. You find people with, these types of things. They want to set up, arguments with people of Ahl-Sunnah and so on. Again, you explain the truth and you guide them and you direct them to believe in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. The next subject is about the Quran and the proper belief in the Quran as the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we'll stop here inshallah ta'ala because of the time. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.